Hi, Sue Jeffers. Welcome to our continuing cable shows to educate and inform you about politics in Minnesota and how it touches every aspect of your life. Today I have joining me Kathy Lohmer, who's running for the Minnesota House of Representatives. Hi Kathy, welcome.
Hi Sue, thanks.
So glad to have you here. Tell us where your district is.
I would be happy to do that. My district is 56A, and it's a small part of Stillwater, 3 precincts of Woodbury, and all the river communities in between that. So Lake Elmo, Lakeland, West Lakeland, Lake St. Croix Beach, Oak Park Heights, Bayport, Baytown. I said Stillwater.
Yeah,
I said
fabulous.
Woodbury. Yeah, so it's 10 communities.
You ran once before and didn't win in a year that was very Democrat friendly.
Yes.
It definitely, if you were a Democrat, you had a D behind your name, you pretty much got elected.
Yes.
We're going to change that in 2010.
Yes.
In 2010, we're going to have some candidates like you who are going to listen to the taxpayer, look out to for the taxpayer,
Absolutely.
And actually make some changes over there. It's a mess.
It is a mess.
And it does not take an economist to know that it's a mess everywhere, on the local level, on the state level, on the federal level.
Absolutely right, yes.
And it's our job to tell people what's happening over there. Guess what they did the second day? You know, of course. The Senate passed a $1.2 billion bonding bill.
Wait a minute, we're not calling it a bonding bill.
What are we calling it?
We are calling it a borrowing bill because that's what it is.
Exactly what it is.
Yes.
Maxing out our credit cards.
Right. And we're going to borrow money when we don't already have enough money. We're already in the deficits. We're already spending more money than we have. And we're going to borrow more when unemployment is at 10%. People are losing their jobs every day, and we're going to borrow money to do, well, should we list them? Some of the things that they want to propose now.
I have $21 million for the zoo.
I see that. New trails, paving, connecting existing trails, $31 million.
$5 million for the volleyball court in Rochester. Lucky Rochester.
Yeah, new women's hockey center in Blaine, just $1 million for that.
Yeah, that's good because they're spending $2 million for their ice rinks in Big Lake, Cokato, Fergus Falls, and New Hope.
And then we have Marshall and Moorhead getting $5 million for regional amateur sports facilities.
And of course,
the campground.
Yeah, $1 million for the camp. So, and those, the people that we've put in office call those priority spending items. What do you think?
I think maybe we should look at bridges that need fixing. If we're going to do anything, let's take our roads and bridges where people are going to work on and prioritize that.
Exactly.
That's what I think.
I think you're right. The other thing you hear over at the Capitol, and well, you've heard it since the end of last year, given the economy has been with the liberal policies in place, we've seen the recession last for much longer than it should have already lasted for. We need to turn those around. Not borrowing so much money, like you suggest, is a brilliant suggestion. Not spending as much money would be another suggestion. But the talk is jobs, 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 jobs. So what do you say to the left side of the aisle who comes and says, we have to borrow and spend all this money to create jobs?
Government doesn't create jobs. That's what I say. The private sector creates jobs. So we need to have policies in place that make Minnesota a friendly place, a destination state again for business. It used to be that way. I remember that 30 years ago where all the companies wanted to come here. This was a great place to do business. What's changed? It's the corporate taxes. It's the small business taxes. It's the tax. I mean, it's impossible to do business in this state anymore. It's impossible to start a business with the fees and the permits and everything that we do as a government drives business away. It doesn't bring it here. And if we don't have business, we don't have jobs. And I don't know how we're going to pay all of this debt if we don't have anyone working. Who's going to pay those taxes? I mean, it's just madness. It's crazy.
We just had a study released this week that talked about Minnesota the people of Minnesota were moving to warm weather states because of the taxes and the weather. We talk about the businesses, Northwest Airlines, perfect example, moving their corporate headquarters to Georgia. We hear about one small business and big businesses after another moving to South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and the taxes and the regulation, I agree with you, are a contributing factor. Let's talk regulations. Minnesota loves to regulate us, whether it's the primary seatbelt law that passed last year, whether it's the smoking bans, whether it's any number of these regulations on top of the various OSHA ratings and things like that. Do you think you could get rid of some of those?
I think that would be so much fun to get rid of. I love the word repeal. I want to see us do lots of repealing in the future. I think that is the way to go. But I just want to go back to what you were talking about, the business again, just for a minute. I did a campaign piece, and in it I have a letter from a woman who was a small business owner in Minnesota, and her husband as well, lived in Woodbury, great family, loved it here, had tons of friends, but they just moved to Tennessee. They were very sad to move, but they could no longer afford to live in Minnesota. And so now they're in Tennessee, where of course there's no income tax, and you know, they're kind of sad to be gone from here, but they couldn't function anymore. They couldn't do it. They couldn't get their kids through school. They just saw no future. And I'm afraid that that's what we're going to be seeing more and more and more of. Our friends, our families, just having to leave, having to pick up and go somewhere else. You know, and I have 4 sons that are in their 20s, a couple of them married now, and are they going to be able to find jobs and live here? I would like them to be close. I'm going to be a grandma. I just found out that out last Sunday for the first time.
Congratulations.
And, you know, I want to see my grandkids live here in the state, and my kids. And this is a great place to live. And it just makes me really sad. We do want to keep it that way.
Because I'm just really tired of the politicians that we've entrusted with the state of Minnesota and our future and the budget, the accounting gimmicks, the kicking the trouble down the road, you know, the spending, the borrowing, and I just don't think we're getting the bang for the buck for our $35 billion budget that we have right now. So let's talk about some, obviously jobs, spending cuts, tax cuts are things, business-friendly policies are what you support. Let's talk about some of the other issues that are important to you. Where would you like to start? Healthcare?
Healthcare is very important to me.
Healthcare is on the national level, but it's also on the state level.
Right. I've been telling people this before Obama's plan came into play, and anybody was even talking about that. And after I ran last time, and while I was running last time, I spent a lot of time down at the Capitol in committees and watching the House floor sessions and just trying to get a real bird's eye view of what's really going on. And they were talking about single-payer health care long before this national. And, you know, their idea is that it is a right in Minnesota for everyone who is a resident of the state of Minnesota to have health care. Well, you only have to live here 30 days to be considered a resident.
Unbelievable.
Now, with our very generous welfare and having that, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine what will happen to our budget, right? I don't know if you heard Governor Pawlenty say in his speech how we spend $43 million per day in the state of Minnesota, and that's $2.3 million more than we take in every day. I mean, and that's now.
Anyone see the problem with that?
I don't know. I see it. And you know, I'm not a PhD in economics, but I see it as a big problem.
At your house, can you spend more than you take in?
No, and we don't. And I just really have been pondering this lately. You know, we have a lot of people there with lots of degrees and all of this stuff. Do we have anybody there with a lick of common sense?
I don't think so.
I'm starting to wonder.
But come 2010, we are.
Yes.
We're going to get people like you elected. Yes. Kathy Lohmer, where would we go to find more information on you?
I have a website, kathylohmer.com. Just go right there and all the information. I've been blogging since 2 years ago when I was, or well, I should say a year ago, when I started going down to the Capitol, giving you a little bird's eye view of what's going on there. And I have all the information about my issues and what I believe and anything you need to know.